Gonna be the man who goes along with you.
Oh man.
Well, I know I'm gonna
Well,
be the man who gets some next to you.
you.
If I hit yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who's able to you.
Nice. Good intro.
Nice.
Cool. Cool.
We're waiting for him?
Yeah. Oh man. Sorry.
Wait, pause recording?
Oh man.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third episode of Trailblazing with myself, Dylan, and Felipe out of Brazil. Felipe, what's going on?
Everything okay? Good news, bad news, as usual, but everything okay.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I don't know what the weather's like there, but it's hot and sunny in beautiful Canada. So we're out of winter, which is amazing. But yeah, we're excited for episode 3. We got an amazing guest out of the UK. And he's going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the UK market and whatnot. So are you excited to have Mike on?
Okay. Great.
Okay. And without further ado, I think he's jumping on here. What's going on, Mike?
Well, thanks. How are you?
How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, thanks for I know we've chatted a couple times, and thanks for jumping on with us. This is our third episode with Trailblazing with myself and Felipe out of Brazil. Still kind of, new to the podcast game and bear with us, but basically, we're happy to have you on. Our kind of goals for this podcast is more just to show the global reach of cannabis. We had a Roy from Costa Rica recently, and just kind of show outside of North America that there's more to the industry, show different pockets and maybe hidden gems and connect people along the way. So it's amazing that you're able to jump on with us.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, maybe just tell us a bit about your background and kind of what brought you to cannabis in the UK.
Yes, so I started as CEO of Cannabis Industry Council back in August last year. Before that, I was working in a range of membership organisations. So I worked for one in the education space, one in the water industry, in local government, and in the energy industry as well. So that's kind of, I suppose, the link to where I am now, because they're all obviously membership organisations, and albeit the policy area is very different. There are similarities into how they work and how the membership engagement operates, the marketing, the communications, I suppose the government engagement. So that's sort of the link, I suppose. But I don't have a background in like cannabis policy or the industry itself. I did write a dissertation actually at university on drug law reform, but that's a long time ago now. But I mean, otherwise, I've just been working in other sectors.
Interesting. But you mentioned that you also work with water and other kind of institutions per se. So generally, most of them involving the environment.
Yeah, a fair few of them have, but I mean, I think that the skill set is always sort of you can move it across. It's just a case of learning about a new industry, and I mean, I'm quite passionate about the cannabis industry, and obviously there are lots of nuances and challenges we come on to, but I mean, I feel you can pick those things up. I feel I have done so. That's how I've always seen these types of roles, really.
Awesome.
Amazing. And I do keep up with some of the international news, but maybe let us know what's going on in the UK right now. Anything interesting evolving recently with the market?
Well, I mean, Cannabis Industry Council held an event in Parliament last week in the UK, where we launched a report on why we think GPs should be able to prescribe cannabis, because at the moment in the UK it's only the specialist doctors that can, which means we think that's a big impediment to growth of the sector. So just to give your listeners context, we only have about 20,000 patients in the UK getting legal prescriptions, most of them through private clinics, and a handful through the NHS, the National Health Service. So, and we know from research there's approaching 2 million people who access the illicit market for medical reasons. So, a big thing for us is how do we open up the legitimate, private and state medical market for those patients. And one thing we think could really help is allowing GPs to prescribe, because when you look at other examples from places like Australia, Germany, and others, Denmark, which we included in our report actually, they have far more patients per capita. And not per capita, the numbers are much bigger as well. But we believe that is to do with the fact that the GPs who are, that key point of contact for the patients are the ones who can initiate those prescriptions. So that's sort of one thing that we did last week. We got a good number of parliamentarians there attending the launch.
Interesting. So when you have this information about the council in UK, we're talking about memberships of all the companies, all the sectors involved in cannabis. So technology, agriculture, and so it goes, research.
Yes, I mean our organisation covers everything. So we view that as a strength. Obviously, it does bring some challenges as well. So yes, we have quite a few medical companies. We have some CBD manufacturers, distributors. We have hemp businesses, and we have others who offer services to the industry too. So there are payment providers, and there are people offering consultancy, whether that's on tax, whether it's on growing cannabis, whether it's on providing services like lighting or fertilizer, whatever it might be. So yeah, we cover sort of the length and breadth of the industry.
That's nice. I'm asking that because I mean, at least in Brazil, in a matter of a year, the number of these companies it was exponential. The number of companies that entered in the market. So like in UK, was it kind of like the same pattern? Let's put it like this, like.
Well, so legalization of the medical market here was approaching 5 years ago. So I think we're talking about Q3 this year will mark 5 years. So I think obviously there had been some with companies in the pipeline, but obviously since then is when everything is kind of developed, and that's seen that the growth in the sector, albeit not to the extent we'd like, but there are reasons for that we can come on to. So I mean, I think the sector is growing, but the issue is getting the patient numbers up, and having the right regulations in place to grow it. I think that's sort of where we are at the moment. I must admit, I don't know enough about the Brazil example to really compare.
No, I'm really talking about.
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
it actually looked like it doubled from last year to now. Like the amount of patients, the amount of companies that work in different. I mean, we're not cultivating, but we have like pharmaceuticals that are installed in other countries, or white labeling, many other companies that work for the cannabis sector, and it almost doubled. So whenever we talk about other countries, we imagine that if in Brazil it doubled, probably in UK or United States or whatever, we're going to have a bigger number of companies that are entering, whether sector they're in, like technology or agriculture. That was kind of the idea, because here it was something very visible. Like in events, the events are every year bigger and bigger. So that's.
Yeah, well, I mean that's interesting. I mean that is the trend here. But what I'd say is that a lot of the challenge has been that the rules aren't really in place to enable companies really to grow and to sell into the UK market very easily. So grow here and sell here. So a lot of the cannabis that is within whatever, whether it's medical or even in a CBD product, a lot of that is just imported. So even though we actually do have quite a lot of businesses here who do grow it, they're mainly all exporting, and then the ones we're selling are importing. So it's quite a strange commercial environment that I don't know of any other industry that is set up like that, or you'd ever dream of setting up like that, because we're not really working in the interests of our own economy. But that's sort of the reality. And I think that can be quite a big stumbling block for people. And it's to do with things like the licensing regulations, to be specific. It just makes it hard for people to have that confidence to build facilities, to grow their business, to get investment, and then to be allowed to actually sell, which is quite hard to get that license.
Right. Do you, obviously with all the talks of Germany and Portugal and the Czech Republic, looking at recreational, if they land or one of those countries ends up going rec, do you see the process of the UK market speeding up, or does it depend on the party in power at the time? Like, what do you kind of see?
I mean, I suppose in terms of the German example, I mean, my understanding is that that's stalled a little bit because of the EU, but I mean, I don't know if they've made a bit of progress with that. But I mean, here, I think we're in a bit of a different place. I mean, Germany, for example, just to talk briefly about medical, has, I think, half of the European medical market approximately, which is, a pretty incredible number. And I think that's over, I think 5 or 6 times, possibly more than what we have in the UK. So we're in a very different ball game, even medical speaking. And I'm not sure, whether it's has the same amount of public support here in Germany. I think you'd have to look into that. But I mean, I think where we are in the UK is really that from our point of view, it's looking at the medical market and trying to grow that and trying to see how we can look at how others have done things well elsewhere and see what we can do, which is where the GP's prescribing comes in. I mean, I think the UK is not. I don't think the politicians or public are in a place where they're recreational uses in any way on the horizon.
Right. But I mean, if you still build the medical market, like there's a bunch of medical markets in the US and they're thriving. So I mean, if the market builds and the amount of licenses grows, then obviously things might change in perception of how, I guess, the politicians view it.
Yeah, I mean, I think breaking down the stigma is a really important point anyway. So I mean, and that's still prevalent even in the medical sector. I mean, I spoke to somebody earlier today, actually, a patient who said that while she was hospitalized, for a particular reason, they wouldn't even allow her to consume her legal cannabis prescription. So that's a hospital not allowing a patient to consume their prescription. It's quite remarkable, really, and it's because they clearly didn't have the awareness and the knowledge and the capacity to deal with that, and possibly also they may the stigma point, I think, comes in there as well. It's so that's just one simple example, just because I heard it today. But I mean, there's lots of these types of examples where people feel unable to consume their prescriptions as they should be able to. There's challenges with things like driving, with employment, with all kinds of areas of their lives, and these are people with legitimate prescriptions. So that is a big stigma in itself before you even come on to the wider use point that you've been mentioning, Dylan.
Interesting, yeah. Now, but some of the islands like Jersey, do they have different laws? Like I've seen stuff where it sounds like they're kind of trying to advance it, on their own timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Channel Islands have a very high per capita number of people with medical cannabis prescriptions. They do have some different rules which have enabled that. So yeah, they have taken I don't know if it's a different path, but they certainly moved further down the line than the UK has. And I think they may well be approaching their market saturation because they've got into a place where they've got the rules in place which help people get the prescriptions they need. So yes, they are further down the line.
Interesting.
You mentioned about the politics about it. Like, what would be the acceptance of politicians, like, and even the society towards cannabis? Like, because some countries, it's like people are more, comfortable with the idea if it's medicinal, some places recreational. In UK, how would you tell us, like?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is public support for more liberalisation of the rules around cannabis, and obviously that could be interpreted in different ways. So, I mean, I think the UK is a liberal, open-minded country. Which I'm not saying you don't believe that, but I mean, in terms of the politics side of it, we've at the moment we've got the Conservatives in power who've been in government for now 13 years. They are quite far behind in the polls at the moment by 15-20 points, and the opposition Labour Party looks likely to win the next election as things stand. And I think that their strategy, not just around drug law but around broadly, has been to try and avoid doing or saying anything that could be considered in any way controversial. They have a very laser-like focus to getting elected now, and people can criticize or otherwise. That's not my role, but I mean that's sort of where they're at. So I feel like they will not be prioritizing drug law policy, and the Conservatives have been in power a long time and have shown they were responsible for legalizing medical cannabis. So that's good. But since then they haven't shown any willingness to go further. But we'll see. We obviously keep speaking to politicians of all sides and keep trying to explain to them around, for us it's made particularly around the medical market and also around the CBD wellness market as well, making sure that consumers can access products effectively. But that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Nice.
Maybe a trip with me and Felipe to come down and chat with them will turn the favor. Yeah. Maybe we'll get them on trailblazing. Yeah,
could be used positively. Yeah, I mean, I think this is really interesting because I mean, I think most countries do the same thing, right? They don't want to touch, and they don't want to start talking about some delicate issues, especially when we're close to the election. So you want to be as neutral as possible, right? But I mean, this is it's a really interesting question, because when we talked to Roy in our last episode, he mentioned us about how they were able to convince the politicians, right, by talking to each one of them individually, explaining, showcasing, etc. And I really thought this was a very interesting idea, and I had some chats with some people in Brazil, and they were already starting to do this kind of work inside of these politician environments, let's put it like this. So it's something that really works, and the public wants it also. There's a big, I mean, every country, everyone we talk about this issue, everyone tells the same thing. The patients, the high number of people that are going after these medicines. So I think, although we still are bumping in these conservative, ideas, I don't think I hope, everyone in cannabis hopes, we hope a lot, but we hope that it's something that's going to happen fast. Especially the way we do, like your council, like having all these members. It's a big engine. It can bring a lot of money, not just cannabis per se, but a whole market behind it, right? And I think this is something they need to visualize.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And I mean, going back to 2017, 2018, prior to the change to the law in the UK, it was individual campaigners, particularly parents of sick children, who actually were the ones who really drove through change. So we had one very well-known parent called Hannah Deacon, and there are others as well who were working on all of this, who really made the case, directly to politicians around the challenges they were specifically facing within their families, and why cannabis medicines would make such a big difference for them, and why the rules needed to change. And that did lead to the rules changing. And certainly, yeah, I mean, those patient stories, whether it's somebody who's terminally ill with cancer who just wants a better quality of life, or it's somebody with epilepsy or with MS, or the form of chronic pain, telling those stories, and politicians understanding about how patients then are able to have a fulfilling life, because pain has been reduced, and they just feel better in themselves, is a really good narrative. And then you can obviously come on to the other things like reducing opioid dependency, and things like that, which are pretty grim, basically. So that it really should be a no-brainer to move people off that into cannabis medicines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you could, whatever you want to wave your magic wand, or have the industry the way you would want to see it, say in 10 years, what would be ideal? Would you want to see rec throughout the UK? Would you want to see kind of a similar model to Canada, or different, like kind of global trade between countries? Like, what would you want to see?
Yes, I mean, some of the things we're trying to fix now is, one is around financing. So there's something called a Proceeds of Crime Act here, which means that if you are a company in the US or Canada, for example, that's made money from legal markets, but those markets won't be legal in the UK, you can't use those funds in the UK for legitimate purposes. So that we feel that's an example of how the industry is being stifled, because capital, which would be forthcoming, is being blocked by money laundering rules. So we want obviously that to change, where investment can happen. Companies should also, I mean, companies are on the stock exchange, but it should become a normalized thing where it should be treated like any other industry in terms of investment and financing. So that's one part of it. Another step is patient access and affordability. That for us at the moment is an issue, because people have to go private, which is not necessarily a bad thing in itself, but the price points may not be viable for many people. So how can we increase the public sector prescribing, and that's where we come into things like, as I said, talk about the GPs, but it's wider than. It's also around the GPs having training. It's also around breaking down those stigmas. So I think for us the primary thing is making it investment viable, making it accessible and affordable, making sure product quality is what people would expect, and once we can get through some of those stages and come on to the CBD part as well, I mean, we think with that, there needs to be a viable consumer market there, where people can buy the products that they wish to from the stores they wish to, as long as it meets safety requirements. If we can get all that in place, I think that would be a really good start. And I mean, on the hemp side of it, we think this is a really good way to decarbonize industry, help tackle climate change. So looking at things like construction, energy, there are big opportunities there that government should be moving out the way of, and allowing the industry to really invest and develop. And there are loads of opportunities there. So I mean, I think those are the key things for the coming period.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, it'd be interesting to see in 10, 15 years how every country is kind of how it's played out, right? Like, it's, Canada was probably second to go rec in the world. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad, or pros and cons going on, but in the US, every state is basically its own country right now, the way they do it. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and just to see kind of who maybe did it correctly. It'll be tough to know that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 10 working groups actually. One of them is looking at it's called the Adult Use Scoping Group. It's actually looking at other countries and what's happened there, and are there lessons we can learn. So we're acutely aware of that as well. We want to look at what Canada has done well or what it's done less well on how about Australia, how about some of the states in the US and countries in Europe as well. So that's a piece of work that we do have going on, because when you do make change in a short period of time, sometimes maybe it wasn't done in the best way. So clearly, if we can look at who did what well, and we can hopefully learn from that, that will hope that would help the UK.
For sure it would. Yeah. Are you seeing some of these, like, are you seeing companies prepare for the day it goes rec? Are they loading up on CBD stores? Like, there are a bunch of CBD stores in the UK. The model's a bit unique to the rest of the world from what I've seen, where you guys can sell in grocery stores. But maybe you can touch on that.
Yeah, so probably what we have at the moment is in the private medical sector, which is probably the best way to make a comparison, if you will, is we have clinics and dispensaries. So those are the two touch points for the patient. So they obviously have to go through a proper process and have to make sure that they have to have tried two different other kinds of medication, for example. But those are the touch points. So there are a growing number of clinics in the UK, and they will have doctors who will prescribe, and then obviously the dispensaries are the ones who obviously provide the prescribed product to the patient. So that there are a growing number of both of those. We obviously hope the patient numbers will increase to make their businesses as viable as possible. And in terms of the production side of it, I mean, there are some very big producers in the UK. I mean, I went to visit one only a couple of weeks ago, with over 10,000 plants. I mean, it's a pretty substantial production they've got there. I mean, they're at a research stage, but they're moving towards having licenses for the medical sector. So there are companies like that who have resources, who have the facilities, who have the will to increase their output as the legal market demands. So that we hope that will happen with the medical market.
Awesome.
That's really cool, because I mean, every country has their own problems. Like, for example, some countries, they still don't have some kind of regulations, like Paraguay, Colombia. They have all the market open except adult use and recreational. So each country has like little details. For example, in Brazil, we can only import products. It's not possible to grow in Brazil, but we have big companies. So, okay, we can't cultivate in Brazil, so we're going to cultivate in a country where it's possible. So you have a Brazilian company with a growing facility in Florida, for example, or in Uruguay and Paraguay. So this could be here. We could be moving in a, spinning a wheel in economy with many other sectors. And it's exactly what you said, like, it's a good initiative, like having 10,000 plants. For some people, it doesn't look like a big amount, but it is. If we had in Brazil one company with 10,000 plants, it would already be something huge. So it is important, like someone to give this first step, for research and now we're having some researches happening here in Brazil. So these are things that help the market, like, move forward, and then when you're talking about UK, like when you guys inside of this I don't know, now you guys are, I really forgot this information, but are you guys inserted in the European Union still?
So yeah, we both
Yeah.
had to leave a few years back. So
Yeah, I completely forgot about this. But how are you guys organizing this, the market between all this part, like with Europe, because you guys negotiate, like, because we're talking about the percentages of THC, how each market regulates, and then you bump in some products that can come because they have different processes, etc. How are you guys handling this? Because we heard there's going to be some kind of, you know, uniform pattern in this side.
I mean, looking at Switzerland compared to the EU, I mean, I think they have different percentage of allowable THC in products. Obviously, they're a non-EU member as well, but they are part of the EU single market, so they're a bit closer. Well, I think the customs union as well, so they're a bit closer to the EU than I suppose the UK is in that respect. But when we left the EU, we did move into UK law, all the existing relevant EU laws. So I think that there were some, for example, to do with novel foods that were just copied across into UK legislation. So some things have just sort of carried on, as was the rules when they were moved over. But clearly, the EU and the UK both create new rules and change rules. So there is sort of things are evolving slightly in different ways, I suspect. Not entirely. I mean, there's various things where have stayed the same, either through just they haven't changed or because there's an agreement to keep them the same. But generally there is an evolution in both. So, but I mean, I suppose you would hope with something that's based on science, based on medicine, that based on a lot of research, there should be a number which is the same for THC content. Really, I mean that would be entirely logical. So, but you'd obviously want that to be the right number, not a number which is inherently low and prevents the market operating as it should do.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what? So where are you based out of now, Mike? Exactly. Are you in London? Are you in?
So I'm in the southeast, in Reading, which is about half an hour away from London.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I lived a bit of time in Edinburgh and Manchester, so I always kind of thought, if the day that the UK went rec, it'd be interesting to see. I feel like London would kind of be like the New York. We're dealing with New York right now, and it's popping off. So the day that the UK would go rec, it'd be. I feel like London would have a ton of business going on, for sure.
I mean, the UK certainly has. I mean, I think we are the biggest exporter of cannabis in the world, I believe. We certainly were a couple of years ago. So I mean, there's certainly the infrastructure and the capability, the workforce here to make this a strong sector with the right rules and political willpower.
Mm-hmm. Do you look? Sorry, go ahead, Felipe.
When you talk about exporting, which are the countries that you guys aim for majorly?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I suspect we're probably the biggest because, for example, the Americans are probably primarily growing for their own internal market. I'm not suggesting that what we're growing is higher amounts of cannabis. But where are we exporting? Well, there are some patented products, such as I think Sativex and Epidiolex, which I think are sold globally. And that's probably one of the ways in which the market is large. But I mean, I think there's other products being sold to various countries too. I don't have the details to hand
though. Well, off topic, obviously football. Like we like to get a taste of. Roy talked a bit about Costa Rica and what he enjoys there. So, what do you? Like, would you got a football team you cheer for in the UK? What's your favorite dish?
Besides working, any hobbies?
Yeah. I mean, football-wise, it's a bit of a disaster, really. I support Reading, and we actually got relegated last season. So we're now in what's called League One, which is effectively the third division. So it's not really a very good place to be. And we broke actually the financial fair play rules, so we've had to sell lots of players as well. So so that's unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is.
So
And
soccer is
we
off
are,
the list.
I mean, we are a cannabis podcast, but they might need to raise the beer prices to get the the wages back, I guess, if they're having to sell players.
Yeah, maybe. You know, some places here actually sell CBD beers now. Actually, so I don't know if it's a thing in North America or in Brazil, but it's a growing phenomenon here.
Yeah, I think we still don't have these products here in Brazil. Majorly just medicinal, but it would be
Like
interesting though.
CBD in beer? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've chatted with the guy who runs a company in the UK, and it's interesting. Yeah, like CBD in beer, it makes sense, but I haven't seen it anywhere outside the UK.
okay.
What we have is beer with terpenes.
Okay.
I think it's a you know, a way to start with the public that is fond with cannabis. Like they're really interesting, but it's not the same thing, right? It's like it's you know, it's a way to start. But a CBD beer would be really interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, maybe we'll have to get some shipped down here. Have to get a hold of somebody.
But do you
But-
need prescriptions to have CBD beers? Probably no.
No, I mean, so the consumer CBD market, there's no need for prescription in the UK. I know other countries sometimes there is a need for prescriptions. Obviously, there are prescription products available, CBD ones as well. But no, there is a wellness market that doesn't require that. The rules are a bit complicated at the moment, and I don't suggest we go into all of it. But at the moment, you can't put new products on the market while a whole authorization process goes on, a toxicology process goes on, which is being conducted by the regulators. But there are, you know, a fair few products on the market already.
Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Here in Brazil, everything that is derived from cannabis, if you talk like medicinally, having CBD, it needs prescriptions. You need to go through a doctor and possibly import this product. So it's really expensive. It becomes something really expensive. So now we're fighting to be able to produce it in Brazil so that we can, you know, eliminate a little bit of this cost. But would be really interesting to have a a CBD beer. I don't know how doctors would prescribe this here in Brazil. Like have a beer once a day. You know, if you're very anxious, drink a beer, you know, something like that with your CBDs. Interesting. But
it might
is
help
this
with
something
it might help with the hangover a little bit, I would imagine.
good? Could be a possibility. But you guys only have like one brand, or you have multiple brands of CBD drinks, beverages in general, like could be beers or juices, etc.
Well, the most popular one, which isn't a beer, is sold in, you know, lots of high street shops. It's sold in well-known like fast food restaurants. It's sold in, you know, regular restaurants, and you know they're just drunk as an alternative well-being product. So I mean that's just the most well-known one, but there are lots of other brands as well, drinks or otherwise.
That's really interesting to find a CBD drink in a fast food chain.
Now, Roy kind of chatted about too as well is you know, cannabis tourism. Is this something you guys have looked at in the UK? Like I've heard about this in Canada as well. They opened up a deal on the security side of the industry, and they opened up a regulated cannabis kind of restaurant out in Western Canada. And it's kind of the start of cannabis tourism in Canada. So I'm curious to see if you guys were preparing for that market.
Well, I suppose on the security side, first of all, I mean, we obviously do need, and we do have quite, you know, sophisticated, you know, security for things like the production facilities, and also people are getting prescriptions that, you know, that there should be a proper process for ensuring it goes from A to B properly. I mean, I don't think that discussions here around the tourism aspect, because we're a long way off.
Right.
What you're mentioning, but I mean, I was in Amsterdam earlier this year, and they've actually, interestingly, now said that people shouldn't smoke cannabis on the street. Actually, and they've now moved it to purely into the coffee shops, and they've done that in reaction to what they believe is behavior of tourists. I'm not suggesting it is they're doing it only for people who are using cannabis. I'm sure they're unhappy about some of the drinking exploits as well. But that was one of the steps that the local authorities in Amsterdam took this year as a result of this tourism.
Yeah, I heard it was maybe targeted at bachelor trips coming from different countries. I'll leave it at that. But no, that's interesting. I mean, me and Felipe, one of our goals is to kind of create a roundtable. Maybe we chat once every 3 months, where we'd have, people of influence like yourself in different continents. So we'd love to have you on once every, quarter or whatnot, and maybe have someone from South America, UK, South Africa, Australia, Asia. And just, it'd be interesting to see these groups and see what kind of conversations get started. Would you be interested in something like that?
Yeah, of course, very, very happy to. Happy to keep the conversation going. I think for us, so we're obviously a membership organisation of about 115 businesses in the UK. We do have some overseas members, but we also want to speak, to other countries, as I say, to learn best practice, to share ideas. And we recently joined an international federation as well of cannabis organisations too. So we're very keen to do the international outreach, because we all have similar but not always exactly the same challenges. And if we can work together, even from a basic level, just sharing science and medicine to actually trying to enact change, then all the better.
Definitely. I think if it's going to be tough for everyone to get on the same page around the world. I mean, but it'd be interesting if there was cooperation, right? Like one idea was having a medical license that was, globally accepted or accepted by, 20 different countries, whatever it is. So there's definitely possibilities. I think at the end of the day, it's to benefit the common person, right? So that's the whole point of legalization, right? So
yeah, networking, this kind of network, I think it's beneficial, because then we can have multiple examples of what to do and what not to do, and because every country has their own scenario. So it's not always like, okay, California does it, we can replicate it. Not exactly. You need to adapt to your own country. And when we have this kind of network, I think it's a learning process for both sides, and also so we can have this environment of everyone in the same page, everyone is aligned, because Brazil wants to make business with the UK, Canada wants to make business with everyone, wants to make business with everyone, right? So having this kind of environment, I think it would be something easier for it to happen. It's a huge market, and I would say everyone is in the path of being well prepared. People just need to talk. We just need to share ideas.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Actually, one of our members is a grower in Colombia, actually. So we do have some connections to South America already. But yeah, absolutely, very keen to support what you're saying.
Fantastic.
Sweet, yeah. And we're still new. This is the 3rd episode, like I said. So we're on the hunt for sponsors. If anyone interested, and maybe one day we kind of joke that we'll do film a podcast wherever, if you're in the UK, we'll come down there and film one in your hometown. And have you been to any of the local conferences in the UK or Europe? Did you go to the one in Spain and Germany this year?
So I went to Cannabis Europa in the UK, which was in London back in May, which is probably the biggest one that we have in our country. And you know, they had the exhibition, they had speakers in the usual kind of format that you'd expect, and it was useful and made some good business connections. So I mean, I'd recommend that, you know, if to your audience, if they're in the UK. I mean, there are some other ones. So we are partnering with Product Earth next month, which is it has a medical zone and it has various speakers, but it's also a bit more, I suppose, consumer orientated as well. The Cannabis Europe is more B2B. Product Earth is B2B, but also B2C, I would say, as well. So it's slightly different emphasis. In terms of the ones in mainland Europe, I mean, I assume you're referring to Cannabis when you say Spain, and there's various other ones in, you know, in Germany and Switzerland, etc. I mean, I personally haven't been to these. Some of our members do go though. We do support some of them, and I've had good feedback. You know, people came back from Cannabis saying it was a good event. But you know, it's maybe one for the future for us. We're only 2 years old. We've only got you know, small team and still trying to grow. So yeah, maybe in the future we'll go to more of these.
Sweet, yeah, yeah. No, it'd be fun for us to go down as well. I've been to a couple of them in Canada and the US, and it's always great to meet people and see how each state and province and country kind of facilitates their own industry. But maybe we'll make our way down to Europe, Felipe, and maybe I don't know, Barcelona sounds a little warmer. Yeah, yeah. Maybe have a couple beach days. What do you say?
I'm in.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, this has been amazing. I don't know if you want to bring any, you know, talk about anything, Mike, where maybe some of the viewers can, you know, help support the UK market, or anything, you know, anything maybe they can email in, or is there a website that they can view?
Yeah, so our website is cicouncil.org.uk. And you know, everything about us, our members, our news, what we're up to is on there. We're also on Twitter, on Instagram. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say Twitter. It's now X, isn't it? Instagram and LinkedIn. And yeah, I mean, I've spoken already about our main campaign around GPs prescribing. We're doing other work as well. So, for example, we had a recent report out on cannabis and driving and the challenges people face. We've got another one in the pipeline on employment rights, and again, some of the challenges for both employees and employers. We're doing a piece of work with drug science and the University of York around what would be the economic impact if cannabis was prescribed on our National Health Service for chronic pain, because for prescription drugs to be sort of given a thumbs up, they need to have both the sort of efficacy and, you know, the results from a health perspective, but also how much is this going to cost us? Is that there are other angles? So we're trying to cover off that cost issue as far as we can. So we've got a proper piece of work going on there. And you know, you'll find out other things going on there, like when are our next events coming up on the website. We've got an event coming up in November during in the UK Medical Cannabis Awareness Week, which runs from the 1st to the 7th of November. And so yeah, you can find out what's going on with that and check out other work too.
Fantastic.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think yeah, I mean, we appreciate your time. Yeah, just again, you didn't have to do this, and coming on, joining us to give us I mean, this has been very insightful. Like I bet you a lot of people didn't know that how big the export market for the UK is. Like it sounds like it's massive. So yeah, no, we'd love to keep having you on, and just you know, as this global market grows, obviously your input would be huge, right? So
yeah, great. Very happy to keep speaking, guys. Really appreciate, you know, you invited me on.
Thanks for accepting the
Awesome.
invitation. Hope to see you soon.
Look forward to it. Yeah, great.
Okay, cheers, Mike.
Bye bye, Mike. Thanks. Nice to meet you, man.